It's a new dawn. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new day. It's a new dawn. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new day. It's a new dawn. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new day. I'm free.
Eddie Nestor, no joke, and there's no jokes about it. Best podcast on the air, and it's a shame to live without it. Curtis Walker, slick talker, auto-tune in every week. Boss lady, she's a vegan, so there's never any beef. Pull up the tune! Eddie Nestor, no joke, and there's no jokes about it. Best podcast on the air, and it's a shame to live without it. Curtis Walker, slick talker, auto-tune in every week. Boss lady, she's a vegan, so there's never any beef. Talk about the world's choices with black voices, giving platforms to the people till we're all treated as equal. They have special guests, they're never second best. Here to represent, giving golden knowledge, they're the treasure chest. Good vibes and real talk about the world we're in today. They have thought-provoking topics, always have something to say. Leave an impression in your brain, making this lockdown feel sane. Join three of the best and get the most out of your day. Eddie Nestor's no joke, Eddie Nestor's no joke. Every Sunday midday, everyone's in ship shape. Eddie Nestor's no joke, Eddie Nestor's no joke. Every Sunday midday, everyone's in ship shape. Eddie Nestor's no joke, Eddie Nestor's no joke. Every Sunday midday, everyone's in ship shape. Eddie Nestor's no joke, Eddie Nestor's no joke. Every Sunday midday, everyone's in ship shape. Hashtag no jokes. Hashtag no jokes.
Hashtag no jokes with Eddie Nestor and friends. The lockdown edition.
Eddie Nestor, no joke, and there's no jokes about it. Best podcast on the air, and it's a shame to live without it. Curtis Walker, slick talker, auto-tune in every week. Boss lady, she's a vegan, so there's never any beef. Talk about the world's choices with black voices, giving platforms to the people till we're all treated as equal. They have special guests, they're never second best. Here to represent, giving golden knowledge, they're the treasure chest. Good vibes and real talk about the world we're in.
Welcome to the Boss Ladies Vegan Kitchen. Today I'm going to be doing some vegan cauliflower curry, warming to my soul on these colder months, and as I'm going to be spending a lot of time indoors, I'm going to need my coat.
Eddie Nestor's no joke, every Sunday midday, everyone's in ship shape. Eddie Nestor's no joke, Eddie Nestor's no joke, every Sunday midday, everyone's in ship shape. Eddie Nestor's no joke, Eddie Nestor's no joke, every Sunday midday, everyone's in ship shape.
Hashtag no jokes with Eddie Nestor and friends. The lockdown edition. The lockdown edition.
Hashtag no jokes. Hashtag no jokes. Hashtag no jokes. No jokes.
Lockdown edition. Lockdown edition. Lockdown edition.
It's a new dawn.
Therapy was a huge
It's a new day.
game changer for me in terms of now how I process things, how I deal with things. I don't think I would have even been able to have dealt with this case in the way that I've dealt with it if I didn't go through all the therapy that I went through.
Eddie Nestor, no joke, and there's no jokes about it. Best podcast on the air, it's a shame to live without it. Curtis Walker,
slammed me against the side of my pickup truck. I shit myself. They broke my glasses.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. So I know what it's like to be black.
Eddie Nestor, no joke, and there's no jokes about it. Best podcast on
Lady,
the air,
is there any advice you've got to give people, whether now, remotely, some people are going through computer love, no booty calls, service providers, a date, one thing that people should find out you think on a date?
Where that person is living and who they are living with.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And you've let those people walk in, mash up the place, and walk out. Job done. They've all gone home with their selfies and their little video clips, looking like heroes in their redneck village.
Your powers of diplomacy are amazing. Is there something that you could say that we perhaps should think about?
The only way I could answer that is that it's not just about me, and the minute that you just take the me out of it, then it becomes easier to deal with. It's not personal in a way. You know what I mean, Eddie?
Hashtag no jokes.
Hashtag no jokes with Eddie Nestor and friends. The lockdown edition.
Greetings to you. How are you? Hopefully you've had a good week and everything is going okay in your world. Wanted to pay tribute with us to Goodens in Hackney, Tony Watson, anybody who used to buy records down in the narrow way, and Lloyd Cowan. Any kid that thought they might be an athlete probably had some time with him. So this thing is real, and it's spawned, no joke, and an opportunity for us to talk to each other, to help each other, to put some things out there. And I really do appreciate every single one of you that take the time to watch, listen, and many of you who've contributed with your thoughts and your comments this week. We do need your help. We do need to keep going. I keep saying it, and people think I'm joking now. People like Curtis, the arts have really been forgotten through this, I think. And I want to say to the politicians who say go and retrain, every time you watch a film, every time you look at a picture, every time you listen to a piece of music, that is art, all of that. And without it, many of us would have lost it by now. So in our way, this is our piece of art, and but we do need your help. If you look in the bio, there are ways that you can contribute by buying a t-shirt, by getting a hoodie, a mask, or maybe sponsoring it, or making a contribution, because Robbie G helped to start a GoFundMe page. I really appreciate your support, though. Thank you so much. This is one of those weeks. Domestic abuse made up about 1 in 5 of all crimes. It went up by 60% in 2020. We probably should have come to this subject before. And tomorrow marks the 40th anniversary of the New Cross fire. So we've got some serious stuff to talk about. But foolishness is also on the agenda. And talking of foolishness, it seems an apt moment to introduce Mr. Curtis Walker. How are you, Curtis?
I'm very well, Mr. Nestor. Very well, sir.
You're looking good. You're looking good. Last week I forgot to mention your magnum moustache.
Oh, yeah, I was rushing, man. I'm missing my barber, Eddie. I'm missing my barber, man. So I've had to do the shaving and cut up myself in a rush today. You wouldn't know nothing about it, but it's
Mrs. Nestor cut herself as well. Same thing. There is no personal grooming going at all.
Well, why don't you do the grooming while you're down there?
This is not a kids show. In case I haven't mentioned that before, it's on Sunday, and there are many people who are missing church, Curtis. I
did my church this morning, 10 till 10:30.
Is that
usually an hour? It's usually an hour, but they no singing this week.
You walk into a church and it would be like,
really, Eddie, you come with me and see which one of us gets blessed.
No, you need blessing. Right. So look, we've got a lot to fit in, as the actress said to the bishop, Curtis, and we better get going. Let's start with a lady that I worked with for a long time at the BBC. In fact, I knew her. I know her as a country girl. She comes from Gloucester, but we don't hold that against her. Her name is Ifadni, Miss Ifadni Campbell. Greetings and welcome to #NoJoke.
Thanks, Eddie. Hi, Curtis.
Hello, Ifadni.
Hello, I know you don't remember me, but we have met a few times.
You're not the first woman that said that to him. Ifadni, believe me, you're not the first person I've heard say that to him. So Ifadni,
nice to see you again, Ifadni.
I've tried to get you on here a few times, and I mean literally the same. My mum's downstairs praying, Curtis's mum's downstairs praying, and you would have been at church, wouldn't you?
Well, I would have literally just finished church now and be heading home. So yes, But of course, with the lockdown and everybody having church in their own homes, I'm at home.
So Ifadni, I don't think we were ever not close, but we kind of got closer because Ifadni is a survivor. I found this picture of Ifadni. Where you find that? Let's put up the picture that I found of Ifadni. I think we'll get that picture up. There you go. That's Ifadni. As I say, Ifadni is a survivor. And Ifadni, if I remember right, that's the cap that they put on because so many women are, when they have cancer, are psychologically impacted by the hair loss, right?
Oh, I'm so glad you used the terminology psychologically. I think I would have said I was if Eddie, I don't know how you felt, but when I was told that I had breast cancer, my biggest fear was having chemotherapy and losing my hair. Never mind the fact that cancer could kill you. All I worried about was losing all my hair. So yes, that cap was supposed to be to help protect it.
and then you cut it all off anyway. You're so contrary, but that's why we love you. Listen, welcome to hashtag No Joke.
Thank you. It's a real. I'm so glad because when I catch it at the weekend, I get home from church and I'm thinking, when's Eddie going to get me on? So I am thankful.
Yeah, it was because of your past with Curtis. I didn't want any bad feeling. I don't want any bad feeling at all.
It's all good.
Let's just let it go with badly. We've got to move on from that now. Let's move on.
It's all good. We're all right.
And one of the
you said you'd call, you didn't call. What could I do?
One of the main reasons this is a brilliant time for you to come on is because, of course, for the BBC, you attended the second inquest into the New Cross fire, which was in 2004. But we're going to come to that in a little while. Let me invite another lady on now. Before I invite her on, let's see her doing her work.
The fact is, if you are locked down in a house with an abuser at the moment, the only thing you can do is to stay safe. And the only way you can stay safe is to not make the abuser particularly aware of your plans. Keep it in mind. Keep your thoughts silent, but prepare. Lockdown will be lifted eventually in 3 weeks' time. And for me, the spike that we're seeing at the moment is not the real spike. The real spike is going to come when lockdown is lifted and people can access the assistance that we need. And I'm telling people to go to libraries, go to their GP, go to social services, speak to a friend. But just for now, just for the next 3 weeks, stay alert.
And that's Paula Roan Adrian, who's a barrister specializing in family law. Hello, you look very different to the person in that video. What happened to you?
I got washed.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning. I need to just, for transparency, say that video is out of date, was out of date, and was applicable to a time. But I always think it's important that people, see what you do in your day job. What's it like then, being a barrister?
It is incredibly rewarding. It's something that I always wanted to do. Ever since I was little, I knew that I was going to be in a job where I wanted to make a difference to people's lives, that I actually wanted to make an active difference to people's lives and help them. I am from a childhood that unfortunately was marred by domestic abuse. And so I always knew that I was never going to be that silent voice, and that if I came across somebody who felt that they weren't able, for whatever reason, to speak up on their own behalf, then I would be that voice to speak up for them.
Well, it's lovely to have you on the show. You're going to have to speak up because you and Evadne are with one troublemaker and one person who does his best to keep the peace.
Don't be so hard on yourself, Eddie. You try to keep the peace as well.
And I'm grateful for your honesty at this early stage in the broadcast.
Right. Oh, okay. So, look, two people who, unlike me and Curtis, actually know about the two subjects that we're talking about, right? Who have time, put work and studied into it. Those are our two big subjects. Of course, we also do the subjects of the week, and we have I think we're going to need Curtis to have a lot of fun today. So let's get on with it. So I want to do something that we don't normally do. I want to bring the boss lady on. I've started rocking already, Curtis. I want to bring the boss lady on.
Don't go there, bro, please.
I know the boss lady. I've spoken to people all week, Curtis. Has triggered all sorts of things. We started with the New Cross fire. Now, boss lady, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Paula and Evadne, looking fantastic. And hello, Curtis.
Hello, boss lady, looking gorgeous. Wow.
Thank you very much. Usual. Hello to the lovely listeners. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, lovely listeners.
Hello, Mr. Nestor.
Greetings, Mrs. Nestor. We put the message out about the fact that we'd be doing it last week, and we put a post up, And we have been absolutely inundated with people who were there, people who knew people who were there, people were on the march, people were impacted, affected by it. And it's actually been quite overwhelming. There are people that I didn't even know who were involved and impacted. So it's been a bit of a journey for me personally, if I'm honest with you. Mrs. Nesta, what I'd like you to do, if you don't mind, is to read, not the messages that have come in today yet, but some of those messages that have come in, just a few of them, if you don't mind, via Facebook.
Well, just to add to what you said, yes, Eddie, there are people that I have known for years, and it's only now that I've realised that they were impacted by the new crossfire from these messages. So it's been pretty challenging. But Andrea says, just reading about this, not one politician or queen said sweet FA. No one held accountable. It's sickening. James Cook, MBE, the boxer, says, Eddie, boxing saved my life. If it wasn't for a boxing match that he had on the Monday, he would have been at the party. Joanne Marriott says she knew a few people that died. Owen Thomas went to her primary school. Jerry Francis was on a sound system called Prophecy. She went on the march to walk to New Cross, Hyde Park. It turned the whole community upside down. Jay James said the community knew who was responsible but was scared to talk because of this person's reputation as a criminal. The journalist also stated that the person responsible for the fire was black. Delton says, I didn't think I still had such raw emotions regarding this incident. They didn't even cordon off the house. I will never forget that Sunday morning. And that's what I'm getting from a lot of the comments, that people are still having raw emotions. And Josephine says, my mum lost her first husband and her sister never met her dad due to the New Cross fire. And they're still praying for justice today. So very, very challenging, heartwarming comments.
Yeah. Thanks very much. I mean, please keep monitoring, and then we'll get more comments coming in. Yeah. Thanks very much. So that's just a flavour. Now, I am aware that it was 40 years ago. Not everybody will be aware, because I know that we're watched by people all around the world. So just to let you know a little bit about what happened and why this event was so significant for so many of us, take a look at this video we put together.
Everybody was just laughing and joking. Everybody knew everybody, so it was just like one big happy family. Everybody's just happy.
Heard a shout, fire. It just seemed like seconds before you could see the smoke coming up.
It looks like somebody's turned a strobe light on.
You couldn't see anything, you couldn't breathe.
It was crazy. People were screaming.
Everyone was trying to get to this window.
The room was getting hot.
For 1 second there, I thought, right, this is it, I'm dead.
Felt like I was sweating. Felt like grit all over my face. And the grit all over my face was me rubbing my skin off.
That is something in my life that I can never, ever, ever forget. The smell of that place, and they bring in the young people out.
I followed the smoke to a window. Somehow started climbing out onto the window ledge. I got hold of a drain pipe and started climbing down.
It just seemed like after a while I could breathe, and I was standing at the window and somebody pulled me from the outside and carried me down the drain pipe, or halfway down the drain pipe.
Murder, yes? Look here, what nobody say. Murder! This result is disgraceful. How can a coroner sit on his backside in there and come with open verdict? Oh, I ain't got words to tell you how I feel.
I've had to push my girlfriend, my pregnant girlfriend, out the window, you know, to save our lives, sort of thing. And here I am being interrogated because I wasn't being questioned. I felt like I was being interrogated.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's New Cross Massacre Action Committee was set up with the function of organising and mobilising support for the Black People's Day of Action demonstration.
We're not going to stop here. It'll be murder, murder, murder for my son and the rest of the 13 kids. This is disgraceful.
So it was a moment. I mean, 1981 was a different time to now. I'm not saying that the kids or that there aren't challenges now, but it was a very, very different time. Evadne, I know that you attended the 2004, the second inquest, right? But might I ask you first about how maybe this resonated with you in 81 in Gloucester? We really often, when we come from the smoke, the big smoke, and it's an apt word to use in this context, we think of it as only being London problems, right? But how did this story touch you in Gloucester?
You know, even listening to those recollections now, I can feel how we as young people, those young people that died were around the same age as we were at that time. And a house party was the regular. That was how people celebrated. So therefore, you had that sense that this could have been anywhere. It could have been any of us. And you've got to remember, at the time when it happened, we all thought it was to do with racist gangs, because the National Front was very active during those times. So we all immediately had the sense that with all the parties that we were all going to, we're all holding house parties, birthday celebrations. I myself, we always every year had a birthday celebration in our house with you know, dozens and dozens and dozens of us crammed into a house. So it really resonated. And even now, I can still feel that sense of lose 13 young lives dying in a fire and the awful tragedy of what happened. And I think people outside of London perhaps weren't aware of how much of a ramification it had and the fear it ignited in Black people right across the country, because we all felt that we were vulnerable and we were also in danger. And also the reaction of the politicians of the day,
Or not, as the case may be.
Or not, exactly. Nobody responded, nobody coming out, just made us feel even more that as a people, we really were on our own and we were not valued. And I still think of all the historical events that's happened in this country within the Black community, that one is still probably one of the most impactful that I can recall. And maybe it's because, as I've said, we were all similar age groups, so it could have been any of us. A huge ramification.
And I think what resonates is the, again, lack of justice, lack of somebody being accountable. And that is just throughout for 40 years, and it's still resonating today in the fact that you have that feeling you're not valued, you're not important, your life isn't as important as somebody else's. And it's that just keeps going on throughout history, doesn't it? That we don't get any justice. Nobody's brought to task over it. And that even with the fire in West London, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, the parallels are there. But as a Brixtonite, let me just bring you in, Curtis, and talk about what you or your sisters understood about, because, you know, this precipitated the Brixton riots. And the Brixton riots, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Evadne, but most people, you know, I've seen an article in the Daily Mirror, an article in The Guardian, but I think there'll be massive articles, TV programs and the like about the 1981 riots. What do you remember about that time, Curtis, or your sisters?
Well, my sister, because I remember I'm a lot younger, so I would have been about 9 in 81. But the reality is, where we were living, the road, the riots were taking place on that road, or the uprising, as we call it locally, was taking place on that road. And I just had an image of my father standing outside the house with a little garden hose that could barely water a plant that was in front of it, much less he was defending his property with a green garden hose that just dribbled water. And that's the overriding memory as Brixton blazed. My father standing there, make them come down here, make them come this way, with a little watering can kind of hose. Just the way I remember it. But it was a scary time for everybody. When you're young, especially, you're just about trying to make sense of the world you're living in. And I know for a fact my sister's older. House parties, as Evadne said, were part of our culture, part of our growing up, part of our history. And in a place where I can't express the vulnerability, even dances that took place months later, you still had that unease, with people being really uneasy about relaxing in what was a wonderful place to be back in the day, you know?
I know. Paula, let me bring you in here, because I think the parallels are there. I remember in Grenfell it happening. It was almost as though these people didn't matter. Politicians didn't attend it. Theresa May went there and spoke to the emergency services and didn't talk to any of the people. Then it was the royal family that went, and you get the feeling they're going to be having that inquiry and that inquest for years to come. Just give me your sense as to the New Cross fire and what you know, remember, or have been told about that story.
So I was very young, sadly, when the fire took place, and I was only in England for about a year, and so that's why I remember it, because it was such a defining moment for me as a child. I was probably about 5 or 6 at the time, and saw the news reports and saw the marches and didn't have a full understanding, obviously, of what was going on and why everybody was so angry. So not just upset, but angry. But as I have grown, and having lived in New Cross and walked past the house myself many times, I suddenly, with age and maturity, have understood that that was actually my first experience of institutional racism. That is what we were seeing unfolding before our eyes. So it wasn't just about the fact that we had 13 Black children die. What we saw was the fact that the institutions that were in place in society that we expect, those foundations, those pillars, the law, the hospitals, the justice system that we expected to now act on our behalves, they just weren't there. And no amount of pushing got answers. And as we say, 40 years on, we are still asking those questions. The head of my chambers is actually a part of the Grenfell inquiry. And when you say, Eddie, this is going to go on for years, you know it's going to go on for years. And it may be that some of those who have survived will pass before they get the answers that they rightfully deserve. And that is a shocking indictment that 40 years on, we are still having this conversation.
It is.
And then, sorry, Eddie, and then going back to the comments that were made, it's about that closure, because you've just had people who've written into you saying they still haven't had a resolution in their lives. They still haven't had any answers in their lives. And that's 40 years. So you imagine now you're going back to the Stephen Lawrence situation when this word institutionalized racism was born. And the fact was Black people knew Britain was institutionally racist across the systems, across the networks. And then you're going to wait until Stephen Lawrence inquiry, McPherson report, to use that terminology when we have been crying that for 20, 30 years prior to that. And that's the frustration. People feel it's like our voices are irrelevant. It just feels that way. So how can I heal if you won't tell me I've been hurt? How can I heal if nobody's acknowledging that I've been cut? Help me heal. Do you know what I mean? And that's so sad, because people have had to live with that forever. And we all need resolution. We all need a kind of defining moment. This happened because of this. It was this person. It was this action. Just that to help us kind of come to terms with it all. And I'm
going to come to you with Adney, because that defining moment, which you and I have discussed again and again before you came on here, is something that I'm not sure is going to happen. Let me I can see all the comments coming in. I want to talk to you about the march, and I want to talk to you about what the second inquest attempted to do and how disappointed people were when it didn't achieve that. First, let me bring the boss lady on. Just quickly, I knew I'm surprising you here. I know I said I wouldn't do this, but there's so many comments coming in. I think it would be really good, boss lady. Just the comments, and then I'll bring you on at the end of our conversation about New Cross. Just give us a flavour as to some of the comments, please.
Well, there are loads. What's coming through is that many people are still talking about how it feels walking past that house today and how it still traumatized them, even still today. Yvonne says if it was 13 white children who died, the policing would have been completely different. As I was saying, Kim says even driving or walking past the house today gives you that weird feeling. Carol Lewis says Jerry Francis, Steve Collins were her classmates, and their class was never the same after that loss. Lloyd Hall was her friend. She will never forget them. D. Rose says, but we know the silence in our own community does not help these criminal inquiries. Police and courts can't convict without concrete evidence. And Janice says, remembering all those who died, and very importantly, to those who survived and have been affected, more strength and comfort. So those
Thank
are
you
some
very
of the
much.
messages.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
We'll come back to you one more time, Boss Lady. Thank you very much. And
Bye-bye.
thank you to all the people who are commenting. Thank you for all the people. I apologize if it's a trigger for anybody, but it's hugely important. Evadne, might I ask you about the 2004 inquiry, because we'd had the march, hadn't we? And the march, if I remember rightly, 20,000 people, and it was something that we'd never seen. It was a weekday. I don't even think it was a weekend. It was a weekday, and certainly, if reading about it, lots of people came from all sorts of places. Because you heard the McPherson report quoted by Curtis there, but there was also a Scarman report. So first of all, let's talk about the march, Evadne.
Well, I mean, for me, obviously, as 81, I wasn't in London, but as a Black person watching that, you glued to the news because it's the only way you were going to see it is to see whatever snippets they chose.
Yeah, there was no social media. It was a different world, right? Different world.
Those days, social media did not exist. And so you had to only catch what snippets you caught on the news. And of course, because as is still the case now, we mistrusted the news in necessarily showing us in the way that we wanted to, but with a march that size, they could not avoid showing that Black people took to the streets in London. So it gave us a lot of pride to see that Black people can come together at a time when it's needed and protest. My sad feeling, and even now, and the more we talk about it, the more I'm brought back to the current time and motion and situations around the Black Lives Matter movements, is that we get out there and we protest and we demand answers, and still nothing. So that march in itself, whilst it's significant because it showed that we can get together when we need to. I don't think we've ever had a march that size again. I'm disappointed once again in how little our voice moved the institution to do and to act in the way that as a people.
Fine. While that is true, Evadne, sorry, Curtis, while that is true, Julia Alexander messaged me when she heard we were doing this to say, Black Britain, Ebony, all sorts of, a bit like now, you can't turn on telly without seeing a Black advert. That there is an immediate response, perhaps not the long-term response, but there is an immediate, oh my God, we better do something about that in the short term. Sorry for interrupting you, Curtis.
But this is what.
Just to add to that, Evadne, if you let me just add to that, there's a power in a march. I know what you're saying is there's a feeling it doesn't affect change, but having been on a few, the empowerment you feel just being surrounded by like-minded people who have a kind of uniformed looking for justice, just to be involved in that is very uplifting. I want to say that as much as the frustration the day after and watching it years later and nothing happened, those people who've been on marches and have rallied around a just cause, there is that personal feeling of well-being while you're on that march. And I must say for your own mental frustration that's going on, for your own mental strength, and if it goes past a few pubs, it's brilliant for me.
Absolutely. And as Eddie says, and my problem is the knee-jerk reaction, which is generally what we see happen. When we come out in force, there's a knee-jerk reaction from the institution to make changes. My anger, if that's the right word, is that it's not long lasting. Yeah. And I think, and this is why even during this current climate of Black Lives Matter movement, my desire and the thing I chomp on all the time is that we have to hold these people's feet and hands to the fire until they do what they say they're going to do. We cannot allow this to be a moment in time. And 10 years later, 20 years later, the people are looking and talking the same way. It has to lead to long-lasting changes.
I have the strange feeling, until we can say a sentence like that without saying these people, I don't think that will ever change. It has to be a sentence where we say our people, the people. Do you know what I mean? And that's the way it's always been throughout our history. It's always been them and us. And it should be us, all of us.
I agree. I agree, and
it's a journey. It's a journey. No. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But we, as a community, need to change that language, and that's with wonderful barristers like we have on the show today. That's where the system changes, when our people, the people, get involved in these decision-making roles. You know.
And nevertheless, as you call for kind of greater unity, I think 2004. And that inquest highlighted, because by then, everybody knew what they knew. You know, you and I spoke, Evadne, about people being at the party. I've spoken to a lot of people because I'm also doing this story on my Drive Time show tomorrow. And there are people who weren't there who claim they were there. There were people who were there who claim they weren't there, right? And there were people arrested because they were walking outside. There were claims, as you say, about the NF. What I do know, what I can say as a statement of fact, is the deficiency in the initial immediate investigation spawned I mean, you were never gonna. I mean, they wanted an answer in 2004. They didn't get one, and I don't know that you'll ever get one now because everybody thinks something slightly different. Evadne, tell us about 2004.
Yeah, I think 2004. For me, it was a real. First of all, let me just say, knowing that I knew the case as people did from outside, but I wasn't in London. This for me was an incredible experience to be at that inquiry, to hear firsthand from a number of the people giving evidence. And as a Black person, it was just to sit there and you're thinking that in this inquiry, you are going to get a definitive answer as to what happened and who caused it. I think it was also sad for me to witness a number of what you would interpret as being infighting from the families who were affected. That was a challenge for me to hear how people were almost accusing each other. These people who have lost children and therefore should have found themselves bound together by that loss were actually, you know, accusing each other. And I think that was a sad thing for me, not having been in London.
But entirely understandable because everything had been allowed to grow. I spoke to a guy, so I spoke to a woman, Paul's wife, Paul Ruddock's wife. In the BBC copy, it says he was her son. He was her husband. So that's in my organization. That's what, I'm looking at it. And I'm like, well, hold on a minute. People didn't know he was 22. He was one of the older people there. So when I think of the ages of the people, it moves me even more. Because to me, it's a 16-year-old's birthday party, right? To me, as a big man, as an OG, as you call me now, 16 is a child. 16, 17, those kids, what they had to live for, Evadne.
Yeah, but I mean, there were a lot of that. That people were calling, you know, there were names that were mixed up. There were relationships that were mixed up in the inquiry that sometimes it was a good job as journalists. You tend to have had a list of who's who and what's what. And also I had been talking to some of the people who were involved in the campaign anyway for BBC as a reporter. So you got to know. So sometimes you'd sit there and you'd hear them saying the wrong thing and you're like, but that's not that person. That's not, you know, it was, there were a lot of that. But I think the outcome, when the outcome is an open verdict again, and that's why when we're talking about answers and closures, honestly, I do not think we're ever going to get to that place where there is a definitive answer that everybody involved agrees with. because, you know, even the people who were very, very close members of family, and you know, they're talking about ex-partners who'd done something and that it was them who then had started the fire. As you say, some people said they weren't there at the party, when in fact lots of people had said they'd seen them in the party. And I think once people heard evidence that disputed our claim and fear that there was the incendiary came from outside, that, because I think people wanted to hear that. You wanted to feel that someone else was responsible, that nobody who attended that party could have done something like that accidentally.
But not intentionally. You see, here's the thing.
This is the thing.
Everything can actually be true with it.
Absolutely, but this is the thing. If somebody, and this is where our community comes into effect, and people have said about us not speaking out. If someone, and it could easily have happened. Remember, in 81, everybody smoked inside. There was nothing about not smoking indoors. So somebody could have dropped something that could have started a fire. Why?
We're not saying they did, by the way.
No,
the one thing that we're not trying to do today is to solve it.
No,
we can't. But it's to explain, perhaps to people who don't know, that because of the incredibly poor initial investigation, and I could say the same thing, Reece, Stephen, Lawrence, that people and the victims have not been properly treated, and their parents and family members are not fully and will never probably be fully aware of how they passed, which then links to Grenfell. So in fact, on that, I'm going to bring the boss lady on to close this one down, because we've got to move on. But just to say, I am amazed by how many people say to me they've been triggered by this 40 years on, and they didn't even know. Yeah. So my apologies if by doing that we've done that. But I think as a show which claims to be spawned from this particular pandemic in order to tell stories from a different perspective, we could not ignore it. It would have been ridiculous for us to do it. And to tell you, and I think it's a good thing, you may not, the number of people that I've spoken to this week for tomorrow, and again, I'm doing it on the Drive Time show tomorrow on BBC Radio London, where I'll have Linton Kwesi Johnson and other people on there. But just to tell you, Steve McQueen is looking at this story. I think he hinted at it with the Alex Wheatle story on Small Axe. But I've spoken to people who said 2 weeks ago they spoke to Steve McQueen. So whether there'll be more questions than answers at the end of it, I don't know. But certainly, boss lady, let's close this one down, please. Thank you very much.
Hello again.
Hello again.
And Eddie, just to come back on your point, although you're talking about people being triggered, there are a lot of people saying that thank you for telling the story. It's a story that our younger generation need to know. So I think it's an important one to tell. Marie Fortune says she definitely agrees with you, Curtis. Unity and showing support for our loss and the injustice is very important, and the way it impacted our wider community. Ninia Benjamin says, what shocks me is we as a people are still getting shocked that we are not respected. Morris says, do people not remember that the fire was at a time of the SBG and police brutality? Would you go to the police to report anything in the early 80s?
Okay, so that's really important. Let me stop you, boss lady, because if my memory is right, they had this thing called the vagrancy law, and that is part of what came up as a sus. And that's also a part of what started the Brixton riots. I think that's really important. It was a conservative government at the time, and for the time, even, it was a very right-wing conservative government. That's a really important point to make. Sorry for interrupting you, boss lady.
No problem. Okay. I'm used to it, Curtis.
Carry on, boss lady.
Lisa Worrell says 13 people died in the New Cross. Many more carry the scars. The 14th victim, Anthony Burbeck, is also remembered. And Valerie says, I was on the march. It was an emotional, heartbreaking day, but my people united and came together to march for justice. Thank you for that. Keep the comments coming in. And just a time to mention our sponsors. Andy McCall from SEMA does recruitment for the design, defence and private sector. Alison Delaney from Little Bird, a gold standard company helping charities achieve their full potential. And the legendary Mastermind is our new sponsor. He does a show. Yeah, big up Lewis. He does a show every day at 4 till 7. And if it's okay with you, Eddie, I'm going to play his little ad.
Is that right, Eddie?
You're the boss lady.
Here we go. Watch out for this. I can see Paula and Curtis dancing there.
That's a jam.
I just want to say one last thing. I can see Curtis and Eddie were wearing our T-shirts. Thank you to everybody that supported the cause and bought it. We've also got hoodies and we've got a mask. Link is in bio if you want to support it and see this show going on. And I've just put the banner up there for where you can go. Thank you for the support. Keep them coming in and keep your comments coming in. Bye-bye.
Bye, boss lady.
Thank you very much, boss lady. To say 56 people were really badly injured in that, and 13 dead and nothing said was the chant. But of course, sometime later, the emotional impact of that incident meant that there was indeed a 14th victim. So, look, let's move on. I don't know about you guys, but it's been properly cold this week. And, you know, I don't know. I need to. You look, apart from Curtis, Paula, Vance, you look fit. But Badman is in his house relaxing, right? Badman is in it relaxing, on the floor heating, everything nice, barefoot, in touch with the earth. And this vegan, lentil eating, lettuce boiling person that I'm married to decides she's going to try and get Badman out of the house. Try and take a look at this.
I'm trying to get my husband to come outside with me. You know, to run, walk, cycle, hop, skip, whatever you got to do, get outside, mental health, physical health. But he just ain't coming. He's sitting in the settee. Look, I've managed to get him dressed. Come out with me, Ed.
No.
Why?
You need to run for your mental health. You need to run far.
Right down. Come on, one more then, one more. Right, so I think you've got about 96 more to do, okay?
I'm gonna stretch it.
Well done, I'm glad you're out. Huh?
It made me muddy. I pulled my clothes and dirty. I pulled my clothes now. How you got people in the forest? You ever see any story with black people in the forest?
Good for your mind.
Once upon a time, there was a black man in the forest. There ain't no story that started like that.
Oh, good on you, good on you, good on you.
Well done, Eddie. No, don't be applauding her with her.
Good on you, Lisa.
We'll get you there, Eddie. We'll get you there.
So you've been in you've been in the park a lot, haven't you, Kurt?
Yes, sir. And again, as the boss lady says, it's for mental health. You know, I've got a dog, but I got him there. I let him off the lead, and I do my thing, which is just the shuttle runs and then some press ups. So we'll have a press up off eventually, Eddie.
Yeah,
I know you think you're fitter than me, but I'm big, but I'm fast. You know.
Yeah. Paula, talk to me about your fitness regime. I saw you, because you know I'm sad like this. Anybody I invite on the show, I'll go through all their business. And I see you doing the stoop down and pick up 100. What was that about?
That was for Refuge and Women's Aid. They were doing the 100 squats a day challenge so that you could raise money for victims. I say survivors of domestic abuse during the last year. So that's what that was for. Yeah.
Yeah, it looked like it hurt. It did look like you didn't look like you were having fun at all. Valis, Is kneeling down at church your exercise?
Well, I don't exactly kneel down, but I do walk and run every day.
Okay.
So I'm
every day, Evadne. Every day.
No, let's start.
You went church this morning, and now you're going to tell people every day.
Well done. Come on, they talk foolishness. Come on,
Evadne. That every day.
Not on a Sunday. No, I'm
telling you. Don't even wash every day, much less
I try to do it Monday to Friday. I try to go out for a walk.
Fair. That's better.
Right, that's better.
Just come out of church.
Yeah. with the you walk with the granny trolley, but I run every day. So we haven't really.
I didn't say how fast I run. You know,
no.
Yeah.
It's too late. Let it go. It's too late.
You let yourself down, Evan.
Let the nation down.
So we got. I don't know what charity, and I haven't even written it up yet, but I'm on this thing where I'm doing 100 press-ups a day, so 20, whatever, but 100 press-ups a day for 100 days, and at the end of it, I'm going to do 100 press-ups without stopping. In fact, this is what Badman is going to look like. Take a look at this.
Videoing me in the park again. I thought I saw somebody behind the tree filming me, you know.
Right, Eddie, I like to say something. That wasn't press up. But it wasn't press ups.
Is that not press ups, Paul?
No, I don't know. So
the man left the ground by 12 meters. That's a press up. That is what a press up's supposed to look like.
Oh
boy!
Right, that's what I'm gonna. That's how I'm gonna be. I just can't leave the rice, peas, and chicken alone. I can't leave. If I could leave I would be a little lighter. Now,
and Evadne, even he doesn't do that every day. You know that, right?
I could not. I mean, I couldn't take my eyes. I don't know what he was doing.
What we're talking about, what you don't do, Evadne. You've become. You have committed the cardinal sin. You have now become the story. Right.
Did you see that he prayed at the end? He was on the prayed.
He never mashed up his hand on the concrete.
Wow.
Why would you do that? Okay.
Brilliant. That's brilliant.
It's ridiculous. Right, so look, we are having fun, but there are a couple of tough subjects which just kind of they needed to be done. I just had a kind of cursory look here now at some of the stats on domestic violence, and they're not good. I mean, I've always known that they accounted for a lot of homicides. I know that when we casually call them domestics, we kind of downplay them. I know that 1/5 of cases in the first lockdown were domestic abuse cases. I know that there was a rise of 60% in 2020. And I think a couple of years ago, I became, like others, acutely aware of something. I think we used to call it domestic violence, but we call it a domestic abuse now because of the case of Challen, where we became aware of this thing called coercive control, where you go, what you do, who you speak to, and all of that became part of it. I know this is your area of expertise, Paul, and certainly we're going to be talking about it. But I wanted to invite a lady on to the show. Now, Dr. Riney, in full transparency, was one of the people who kind of came to me along with a woman called Nicole and effectively said, what are you doing? You've been at the BBC for 18 years. You're clearly not as stupid as some people think you are. Why aren't you doing more? And why aren't you doing better? I never thought you would be on the show for this, though. So, Dr. Riney, greetings and welcome to one of your children. This program, I would say, is one of your children. Thank you very much for the kick up the arse. And thank you very much. And welcome on to hashtag no joke.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Eddie. Good afternoon. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So you're a high-powered PR, international, incredibly well-connected person, and you're on this show to talk about domestic abuse. Talk to me, guy.
Yeah, it's funny you start like that because for a long time I think I was in denial. Could you think, God, I'm this strong person. I come from a loving background. Things like domestic violence, domestic abuse don't happen to me. And I also think because I kept comparing myself to other people's stories, that I didn't feel mine was, I didn't even want to talk about it because I just thought that my story is got nothing compared to others. And it's because I was with somebody who, you know, had a good job, seemed fine, seemed like a good enough guy. I had lost my mum not too long, and I just wanted to just be by myself, to be honest. And it wasn't until I said to him that I just wanted out of the relationship, needed time for me to really mourn my mum's death. And I never forget, I said, you know, I wanted out. And I remember going upstairs. He was downstairs. And he came upstairs. But, you know, there was I can still, as I'm talking now, I can still feel that coldness. There was something different about him. And he said to me, the only way I was leaving him was dead. And I must admit, I think I laughed because to me, that's just ridiculous. I don't understand that kind of talk, behavior, language. And when I realized he was serious, he pulled a gun out. And I just always remember just hearing a click and thinking, this is not how I want to die. That's all I kept saying is, this is not how I'm meant to die. But when it clicked, at the time, I don't know what happened. I'm assuming it got jammed or something. But all I know is I ran for my life. And I just remember for ages just sitting and thinking, what just happened? You know, when you see your life just flash before you. And to be honest, that's when my life got worse because it was the stalking. I mean, I left London because of it. I just disappeared. I was just a mess, to be honest with you, for a long time. And you know what, if I'm being really honest, me as a psychologist, you know, I deal with lots of issues and I was in denial for a very, 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 very long time. A very, very long time.
So hold on, bear with me. In denial afterwards or denial retrospectively about what was happening, which led to that moment?
Both. I think both, because now when I look back, I then find out that he had told all my male friends not to speak to me. You find out after the fact. And I know this sounds really, one time I remember we was going to a wedding. I'll never forget this. And even though he wasn't angry at me, somebody cut us up and it was his this anger just came from nowhere. It was so extreme. And I remember at the time thinking, You know, I was just a bit shocked. You know, my dad, I've never even heard shout. I've never even heard cuss. I've never heard him swear. I've never heard him say shut up. Nothing. So it was this extreme anger that I thought at the time, oh, you know, and there were when I look back now, there were little warning signs. And the denial afterwards, I think, you know, as human beings, when something tragic happens to us, we go into trauma and we just block out stuff. And that's what I did. I just blocked it out.
We've been talking about it. It seems to come up almost every week. It came up last week with Lee Lawrence in relation to his mum, Sherry Gross, about being in trauma, how it plays out, getting counselling, and all of that. Thank you. I mean, I am going to ask you more. I mean, thank you. Thank you for talking, because what you're doing in many ways is going, there are very, very many different types of normal. And actually, sometimes in victims' head, they think, is it me? What did I do wrong? Did that just happen? And because you're in it, and part of it is power and control, often you're isolated. I'm going to come back to you, but let me bring you in, P, because I've seen you. You talked about it in your own life. What was it about it in your own life? And what is it about what Di just said that you think is one of the key elements? Is it the power, the control?
Absolutely. But actually the key for me is fear. And I know that sounds like a really obvious, simplistic word to choose when you're talking about such a massive topic. But when you are a child living in that household, and even as we're talking now, my heart is racing because I'm back in the living room, or I'm back in my bedroom upstairs under the blankets, you know? So even when you are a child, there is fear. And if you are the survivor, there is fear. And it's a key word even for the perpetrator, because what the perpetrator is doing is they are displacing the fear of confronting their own issues onto you. That's what an abuser does. And it's hard, you know, you hear it all the time, don't you? When you're, oh, it's the bully, it's the bully, it's the bully is the coward. But that doesn't really make sense when you're the one who is having to deal with the bully. Yeah, you're the one who's having to manage the bully. But actually, when you come out of that process and you look back, yes, you know now it is the bully who is actually really the one who was fearful. It was really the perpetrator of the abuse who, for whatever reason, for whatever was going on in their childhood, their background, that they just couldn't deal with, they just couldn't confront. And so instead of doing that, they were able to put it onto you. So the word fear is my key word. And that hasn't changed throughout my 20-odd year career, because let me tell you something, it's not the survivor of abuse who is fearful anymore. Once they make that decision to leave, they're not fearful anymore. What they're now trying to do is to survive. And it's hard to learn how to survive when you have suffered that trauma. And I know you're going to ask me about this, Eddie, so I'm going to bring it up now, because we are always asked, why didn't they just leave? Why didn't you just go? And I have to keep screaming to people, they do leave. They do try to go, okay? We've got the stats that tell us that 85% of people in domestic abusive relationships.
How can they leave if they don't know? If you're in a relationship now and I've got your bank account and I've talk to your friends, and I'm, telling you, baby, I love you, so I don't really want you. If you want to go, I'll take you, and those types of things, which is the way it plays out through narcissism, charisma. It can be, I'm love you. They don't love you like I love you. I'm the only person. You're the. So how can you fight that when you don't even recognize? Because when you're in it, you're in it.
Yes. And not only when you're in it, but when you're in it, you're in a safety mode. Your brain goes into protective mode. Yeah. So all your brain is thinking about is getting up, going to work, keeping the roof over your head, making sure your children are going to school, making sure you stay alive. That's where your brain is at. And also people have to understand that you're not getting beaten every day. Okay. You don't wake up and get beaten every day. For 3 weeks of the month, this is the most perfect person you could possibly imagine that everybody would want in their lives. And of course, most people do want this person in their lives because everyone thinks they're a great person. Let's invite so-and-so round for dinner, blah, blah, blah. They build this fantastic picture of themselves. Yeah? So, there are so many things going on in your mind. And as I say, the stats tell us that they do try to leave. So it's not that they're sitting there, but they are also in love, Eddie. They are also in love. And we all know, because we're all grown up, we've all been in relationships, that each person in that relationship will push boundaries. You will have a limit where you think you will never cross, and you cross it. Because that's what being in a relationship does to you. And so it's such a difficult place to be when you turn around and you think 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, when there's a child, 2 children, 3 children, oh my gosh, is that me? Am I a victim of abuse?
Also, if you don't have any money and you're financially dependent on that person. And so I am going to come back to you, Ty, but I literally can see dozens of messages coming in. It's such an important subject that I'm going to invite the boss lady back on. Boss lady, can you just give us a sense as to 2 things, really? What people are talking about in relation to their own experiences, and if there is a question pertaining to either Paul or Di, I'd love to give people, because somebody watching this is recognizing themselves, right? We absolutely know that. So if you can, please, boss lady.
Well, I haven't seen any questions, but I do have this message. I won't give the person's name, but I think she was listening, and then she says, sorry, I cannot hear today, as she's dealing with a problem of her own. So I just want to say, Paula, if she's listening, if there's anything that you can advise her.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to say, actually, I wanted to open and say to you, if we are being beamed into a house where domestic abuse is an issue, let me tell you something, Eddie. Either the laptop's gone down or the volume's gone down, or if we are being allowed to be heard, then the survivor is going to be in fear. Because when this conversation finishes, the atmosphere is going to be
I
wanted to say this. Just to kind of understand what we're dealing with here. And I wanted to be able to say to anybody who's listening, first of all, if they're finding themselves in this situation, to DM me personally on Instagram. Contact me when you can. I say that to people all the time. And just to make sure that when they're ready, that they can call 999, or that they arrange somehow to get to somebody who will be able to assist them.
Okay, let me stop you there, only because I still want to come back to it, because it's been recognised by government, and I want to talk about people being able to go to pharmacies. But I just want to bring in Dr. Di, in terms of what's being discussed here today, and in your other job, they kind of don't work together, do they? Have you reconciled that now? And is this part of the book and the charity work you've done? Explain that for me, please.
Well, it's interesting what Paula says about because I get that all the time. Why don't they just leave? I actually deal with the charity Strength Within Me Foundation. We only deal with children. They can't leave. I deal with generational domestic violence. I deal with, as Paula, even listening to Paula, I've got a case at the moment where the kids were found underneath the bed with their hands over their ears. They can't leave. The kind of abuse that I deal with, I mean, in the last lockdown, we used to get 30 kind of calls a week because we do a lot of preventative work. And we formed an all-parliamentary group, took it to government to have healthy relationships taught in schools as compulsory. Because I'm thinking, if you're talking about sex education, shouldn't you talk about what's a healthy relationship before you even get to sex education?
Oh, that's another one. Di, before you finish, I have to say it now, because if I don't and it doesn't get said, then I won't have done my job properly. That when we're talking about domestic abuse, we're talking about it as though it's a man and a woman who are in a relationship. I've dealt with cases on the radio where the son is hitting the mum. The sister.
That's one of the most growing domestic violence is children attacking their parents.
And definitely on the increase, isn't it?
And the other one, which I am going to mention, which is same-sex relationships. That's also absolutely massive. So if we've framed this in terms of one particular type, then I apologize. But
no,
I'm just
you haven't.
it
hasn't been. It's been very across the board. So they talk about people. There's never been that term used. Honestly, I've been listening, my brother. Honestly.
Boss lady, are there more? Sorry, Vanny.
Somebody's messaged me saying they couldn't get to write on the question, but she did say, men also suffers domestic abuse, and I think although women, I've met men who will tell you about the kind of abuse that they themselves have experienced.
Right.
1 in 4 women in their lifetime and 1 in 5 men in their lifetime that will suffer with domestic abuse. And the stats in relation to same sex are just they are just I think it's something really like 4 or 5. It's incredibly high. They're updating the figures in regards to same sex relationships, but it is incredibly high.
So in the same way, Di, that Paula saw it in her house and decided to do it, how have you taken this negative experience, Di, and tried to make it a positive one? So many people that I talk to who've gone through tragedies or difficult moments have done this. Di, I'm really conscious that we're doing all sorts of things to you, and I really don't want you to think we're leaving you hanging there. How have you turned this around?
Like I said, I decided to start a charity that specialized with children because they are the next generation, as cliche as it sounds. And I wanted to stop that cycle of, creating victims or perpetrators. It's about having honest conversation about relationships as a whole. It's about the things we see on TV that you're led to believe, these they're fantastical stuff. And it's about unpicking that. And like I said, some of the, if you look at, it's all connected. You look at youth violence, a lot of the young people I work with, 90% of them had domestic violence, domestic abuse in their household. They're connected. If you're used to seeing violence at home, why, when you step out of your house and you come up with a situation, that you're going to deal with it any different? So it spans a lot of areas of the issues that are real systemic. And to me, domestic abuse, domestic violence, domestic terrorism, whatever you choose to call it, is the silent pandemic.
Yeah.
It's killing
Very
us.
true.
So
and
many
a lot of people
die per week.
Are aware of is the mental cruelty going on out there
It's
as well,
awful.
because it can be very subtle and people aren't seeing it until you see a friend or somebody you know and realize they've changed a lot since they've been there. And it's not physical, it's a mental thing that is even harder to pinpoint. And as Diana said, It's about the social media as well. How you can talk about what we're seeing on TV, but we've got a whole new world going on out there that our children and adults are viewing, and we're feeling less about each other. The humanity has kind of gone because everybody's on social media for their own reasons, and a lot of young people and adults are seeing stuff that just is so unrealistic to a level-minded person, but to somebody else, it's actually fact and it is real. And you're wondering how that affects our young people mentally. And I think that's something that is so poignant with the way young people engage with each other. And sometimes it's quite terrifying because they think they're being grown up, dealing with stuff in such a kind of cold, callous kind of way. And it's experiences I'm having with young people right now that you're thinking, really? But it's what they've been taught. It's what they're learning on social media. This is how you do it. You swipe left, you swipe right.
It's a reflection of, I mean, like Paula said, you know, Paula might have experienced stuff as a child. She potentially could have gone on to be a victim herself, or certain things in her relationship could have come up, which it's hard for her to deal with. And then it's just a vicious circle. For me, psychologically, I'm still like, when I drive into my drive, I still look behind. I'm still nervous. I've got a private license plate where now, before he used to ring me and say, where are you? Why are you there? And to the point where you then take that off. You just become a shell of...
How did it resolve itself? Because we're all interested in how you became who you are, how you broke free. How did it resolve itself?
I went into therapy myself, you know. I mean, as a therapist, you have your own therapist anyway, because we get told such dark things, it can consume you. But I had to go and have therapy myself because I didn't, whatever relationship I went on to, like the relationship I am now, I didn't want to subject my present partner to things and triggers from my past. That's not fair.
Well, that's quite interesting, Diane. Sorry for interrupting, but I've just got a question from Paula. And she says, if you could revisit the relationship again, what advice would you give someone about the little trigger signs, if any?
Yourself. Give advice you'd give yourself.
Right. For me, it would be, I know there's Jane's law, Sarah's law. There's so many different laws. I would have done I know this sounds, I would have done more of a background check, because you can do that now.
Yeah, you can.
You really can.
Particularly if you've got children, right?
Yeah. But the thing is, it was just those little...
Regardless of whether you've got children, Eddie.
No, you can still...
You can check.
Still. And if I had done that, because what came up afterwards, he had done it before. Okay. He had tried to strangle someone before. He had done this before. Yeah. And this is what I say about even our community. Some people in the community knew, and it was afterwards said, oh my God, I wanted to reach out to you. But they could have been saying that.
No, that's difficult, you know. I know Paula's going to get
No.
That's difficult.
No, but this is where we talk about, let's take Curtis's point about humanity, yeah? There was a massive case in America. It took one woman. What she used to notice is that her colleague used to come into work and she used to learn a bruise, even though she tried to cover it with makeup.
Yeah.
All she did was take out a little diary and just put the date and what she noticed. She did that over a 2-year period. This gentleman horrifically went on to try and kill that woman. And if it wasn't for that lady quietly taking her little notes, when it went to court, he wouldn't have got the sentence he got.
Nice.
You know, I always say
I would have noted down he has a gun. That would have been my first note. I would have said, there might be an issue, saw a gun. I'm just saying, that would have been an alarm bell to me.
Let me tell you, he's on it. He's on it factually. You're there, Curtis. You need to come to work with me.
Well, look, Paula, let's just do some of this stuff, because we can talk about it. And there are so many things coming into my head of stories that I've been told over the time, personally and professionally. One by an adult who said to me, she was painting her house, and when she was painting the house, she just started to cry. And then when they thought about it and it went back into the brain waves, it was a memory of when her stepdad hit her mum. They had moved into a new place and there was fresh paint smell. So triggers are really, really important. But a kind of recognition, Paula, this week by government that, you know, we're in a moment. Just talk to us about that and what the new advice is about what people can do in pharmacies.
So, yeah, there's two things there. There's the recognition by the government, and you're absolutely right, Eddie. At the moment, coming through the House of Lords, we've got the reading of the Domestic Abuse Bill, which is going to be the new law that will hopefully be introduced very shortly, which is now going to have a legal definition of what constitutes domestic abuse. And what's important about this legal definition, as you've already highlighted, is that it's not just going to be about the physical impact of domestic abuse, but also the mental, the emotional impact of domestic abuse. And in regards to what's happening on the ground and the kind of work, the policies that the government are putting in place, they have introduced a code word, a password, it's Annie, that you can walk into your local chemist and say that, oh, is Annie here? I need to speak to Annie. That will be a trigger to the person working in the chemist to know that you are actually seeking help. So, you know, finally, we have got the government doing something to assist. However, can I just have a 1 minute rant? We've still got a lack of refuge spaces. Okay, there's not enough refuge spaces for those desperately in need. And even the refuge places that we have, no disrespect to all those charities out there who are helping, where am I going with my 3 children? I've got 3 children. How am I going to put myself and my 3 children in one room, get up and go to work every day, make sure my kids have got their packed lunches and go to school? It's not realistic. What we need to do is to make sure that people are educated about how they can protect themselves in their homes. And this is where I come in. There are things you can do, people, to protect yourself in your home. Even if you are not the homeowner, even if you're not on the tenancy, you can still get an order to protect yourself in the home and make the perpetrator leave. And you do not have to pay for that legal advice or that legal representation. I keep trying to get this message out there to people. You don't have to be rich to get legal protection.
Well, don't worry about rants. This is the rant.
And I like that rant.
Don't worry about rants. We like that here.
Well said.
I like that rant, Paula, because the thing is, I said an article about it's great that like you've got an exemption if you're fleeing domestic. That's another one the government put out there, that if you are fleeing domestic violence, you've got an exemption that you can be out while in lockdown. And I just thought, okay, that's great. And go where? There's no space at the refuge. You go to your council. There's many cases that you're not helped. And what people need to understand, and the government needs to really do something about, and not some PR rhetoric, is when you have to return back to the place to where your abuser lives, that is the most highest point where you can meet your death. So just telling people, oh yeah, you've got exemption, yeah, go, there you go. You know, they haven't thought it through, as Paula says. They have not thought this through. And I mean, you know, yes, am I glad of the crumbs that we're fed? Yes. But there's a lot more the government can do. I'm sorry. There's a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, the last time I checked, I'm so sorry to say this, but just talking about, you know, the who a survivor of domestic abuse is. The last time I checked, and I could be wrong, but definitely for London, there are no male refuges. None.
No, that's correct. That's the last time I thought.
Yeah, I understood that there was that there hadn't been any spaces for men nationally, but in London, the refuges don't even exist. So, you know, you talk about domestic survivors, and why don't they leave? Why don't they leave? How could you stay so long? Where are they going?
Okay. Paula, stay with us. Di, I've got to say we're 20 minutes over, but we were always going to be over today. Thank you for coming on. You'll have to come back because you do so much, and we haven't even scratched the surface.
This is such a big subject.
But in just this subject, you can speak across, is it? So when's the book going to be out?
End of January this month.
January 2021 or January 2022 or 23? Because every day I phone is tomorrow. And what you've sent me, I was going to read it today, but I've already gone to that dark place. I don't want to. Very, very, very good. Will you let us know? Definitely. Give me a copy and then we'll get you and we'll do a one-on-one.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah?
Anytime.
Thank you for your help. Thank you for your advice. Thank you for your guidance. Look after yourself and thank you for making yourself vulnerable. Yes?
Sorry, Eddie, I just want to add, Diane, many people are just saying thank you for sharing your story. It's really helped them and that you've been really brave. They just want to send that message to you. Thank you from the listeners.
Yeah, as I said, I was a victim, but now I'm a victor. And
yes, you are. Really brave for talking to me. I thought you said that. Thank you very much. Sorry, Doctor. I've got to call her by. You go and you study for your exams. You want to be treated. Look, we're well over time, but I just need to. What can we do? What can we do? What can we do? Right, boss lady. Can you just play a video for me? The one with Donald Trump's relative. That one, right? Crossing the road, right?
This one here.
Yeah. 1 second. I want you to think. You never knew, so let's see. I want you to go back to a time that was very embarrassing, because that's something that Curtis. I know you got enough, but I don't really. It's not that kind of show. You can't talk about what happened in the bedroom. I don't want any of those, right, Kurt? Right? So it's got to be something different, right? Take a look at this. I know I'm going to die a painful death, but I couldn't help but laugh when I see that. Vads, come on, tell me. Tell me what?
Oh my
come on,
gosh.
I don't like Vads.
No, it is funny.
You've already laughed once. You've already lied once. I don't want any more. Right.
I didn't lie. I just embellished the truth. No. There were two incidents, and then I suddenly remember the last one. I went to a meeting at the House of Commons, and I'm coming out in my heels, feeling real good, because, you feel kind of special when you go to the meeting at the House of Commons. And as I'm coming through the courtyard, and there's a group of kids all coming in, my heel caught in the hole of one of the grates, and I went literally, I'm telling you, flying across the courtyard.
Did the shoe stay in the drain? Did the shoe come out?
But flat on my face. And then the security guards come rushing over, and some man come, and I was so embarrassed. Even though I was hurt, the embarrassment, I had to pretend like it was. I wanted to just pass out.
Did you have the skirt on as well?
Yes, I had a dress on. Yes. Oh my Lord! They even called an ambulance. I could have died of embarrassment.
I think if that happened to me, I'm crawling home. I don't want anybody. And then when I get home, I'll tell them somebody pushed me over. I'll tell them I had an attack, angina. But I'm sorry for you.
Sorry. Yeah, that probably the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me.
Wow. Paula, I mean, apart from probably, have you ever been mistaken for the criminal?
All the time. I'm mistaken for the client. I'm mistaken for the social worker. Basically, I'm mistaken for anybody else but the barrister. And can I tell you that this is other barristers saying this to me? So it's not like I'm walking into a waiting room and you know, somebody sitting in the waiting room says, "Oh, excuse me, do you work here?" or something. You know, you do it in Tesco, don't you? No.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the advocate's room. I've got my iPad up, you know, I'm doing my thing. And I'm even conversing with other barristers. And they will come into the room and they will say, "Oh, sorry, can you leave, please? Because this is just for barristers."
Oh, wow.
Barristers' faces who are just, they are mortified. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you have, I don't think you do, actually, which is why it's lovely to have you on the show. Do you have any form of patois in your repertoire? Because that at that point it would come in with a good answer. Your BBC or your whatever. You need to develop some patois in your repertoire. It will help you. You might sound more like a criminal.
Next time. We're not.
No, don't listen to him. Do not bring patois into the chambers. You don't need it. Stay where you're going, girl. You're doing all right.
Kurt, I mean, either on stage or wherever. Where's your one?
My most embarrassing is a gig in New York, and I'm in the dressing room. All big American comedians. I'm quite honoured to be there, but I'm on early on doors. The tannoy is playing into the green room. Name gets called. You rush onto stage. Just bought some new shoes. Ran on stage and went. Arse over head, and I'm gone, Eddie. I've dropped. The crowd, the biggest roar you've ever heard like that.
That English is funny.
Whoa, look at that English. My God, I didn't know a big guy could move so fast like that. I'm pulled on my ass. I'm done, Eddie. I'm done, but I've got to get on and do 20 minutes. So I get up, you know me, ad-lib it, hold the shame, hold it all, keep it together, do the set. But I'm trying as a comedian. You're trying to top the laugh you got when you came on. You understand? It's never going to happen. Anyway, come off stage. The American comics that have been in the green room hearing it all on the tannoy. "Hey, man, what did you do at the start of the show?" And I went, "Hey, that's a secret I'll keep forever." But they're hearing me storm. Because as comedians, all you hear is the laughter. They didn't see me drop. They just, "Man, what did you do in the first bit?" I said, "Man, it's just something I do. Just what I do." But that was most embarrassing. But after embarrassment, like you said, Eddie, you want to crawl away. As a stand-up comedian who's just dropped on his backside in new shoes, you've then got to stay on there and top it and try and top the drop. You understand what I mean? It was the most exciting night, most embarrassing night.
Yeah.
And you, Mr. Lester, I know you've got a load of them because Lisa's told me a few. What is your most embarrassing moment, Mr. Lester?
I think I have to go back to Hackney when I was about 16 or 17. And I was going out with a girl called Jennifer, and
Jen.
Shut up, Katie. I was going out with her, and that time there, I could put things up on wall, decorate, whatever. And her mum had 2 ornaments that were incredibly important to them. I said, "No problem, I could put them up." And I did it, and the mum was sat there watching me, and I did it. I put it up, and it was on the wall. It was brilliant. I turned around and I said to her, "You see, nothing for you to worry about." And as I said the word about, it drop off the wall and mash into. And then I tried to clean it up and say, "No, it's all right. Just go.
Just go.
Don't touch anything else.
Just go. Get out of my house."
I don't know. Sometimes I don't know about you guys, but it just comes into my head, and I start to shake about how I make an idiot of myself. Well, listen, I'm glad that we didn't do that today. Ibadni, thank you so much. Just before you go, I know you're a PR consultant with Shiloh now. And I know I've phoned you enough times. Thank you for coming on here. Thank you for doing this. Just before you go, how old is Karen now?
Oh, Eddie, come on. If I tell you how old Karen is, then let's start calculating how old I am. She's a big grown-ass woman.
She might even have grey hairs of her own now.
Well, not quite,
but as she's got to be, let's say she's 30, right?
Okay, let's say she's 30.
What relative to what you've heard today, might you have said if you were bringing up a daughter now? Because with social media, sexting, revenge porn, with all the other stuff, it's got to be a lot more challenging now, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And even taking Karen out of it, because it's difficult to kind of even think what I would say to her now, because she's an intelligent young woman. But I know of someone whose teenage daughter, and she's really struggling because they're on the social media platforms now, and you can't keep track of all of the various. You take them off one and they go back on in another way. And they are sharing photographs of themselves that are inappropriate, but it's because they think it's the norm. So
Yeah.
I really listen to Diane, and it's about what is healthy relationships, and letting them know just because you think everybody else is doing it, the chances are they're not.
We'll have to
And
do
you
that.
should, can't be doing that. So I think, for me, it's letting them know that what you put on social media stays on social media
there, baby.
for the rest of your life. And at 13, it's fine. At 21, even at 20, it's not. So it's a minefield, and I do feel it for parents now.
God bless you, Ivani. I know you're coming back onto BBC Radio London. Where they've allowed us about an hour to dedicate solely to New Cross, where we won't be like this. We'll be completely different, but the message will be the same. God bless you, Ivani. Thank you for coming on. #No Joke. I really do appreciate it. Paula, how are you?
Don't let us say goodbye.
Oh, honestly, I've been so honoured to be on, and I'm sincerely grateful to you allowing me to kind of get my voice out there and to let people know that there is help out there if they need it. And can I just say, just on that point, this is also a message for the friends and for the work colleagues and for the neighbours and for the postman or postwoman who thinks that something might be happening, but they don't want to say anything. Dr. Ryan's story was a great example of how you don't have to be an expert, how you don't have to go and put your arm around someone, but just your physical presence and acknowledgement of what that other person is going through can be the key to helping them in the future.
Thank you for coming on. Curtis, would you like to say bye-bye?
Goodbye, barrister.
Thank you. Would you come back on if we invited you?
I most certainly would.
Curtis, shut up, will you? That's why I don't answer anything. You just shut up. Thank you so much. God bless you. Good luck with what you're doing, and thank you very, very much. They love you. There are lots of lovely comments about you on the show. So thank you very much for coming on. Thank you very much.
Guys, and thank you so much.
Can I invite the boss lady on, please?
Yeah. In the middle.
So the boss lady is about to get to a special moment, Curtis, because she's about to get to 1,000 people on Instagram.
Ah, well done. What's the hashtag of it?
Lisa.Nesta on Instagram. I've put it up there. You can see it's really good.
Okay.
I do my recipes that Eddie enjoys. You can see that I'm trying to make him get fit, helping him with the press ups. It's all good.
How are you helping him?
You need to work on his mental attitude is the thing you need to work on.
I'm trying to. That's a little bit harder. I'm getting him out of the house. That will help both of them.
It almost looks like you were bullying him, though, boss lady.
Well,
and after the show we've just had, I wonder if he knows the name he should say if he goes to the pharmacy.
Yeah.
That's how much.
Lisa and Curtis.
That's how much strength I needed to actually get him out of the house. But I know, in all seriousness, he did feel better afterwards. It was nice to get him out and do a little bit
extra. How do you know how I felt?
Because you told me.
Okay.
Now, can you use that same energy and get him into the bathroom?
I'm working on that one.
One more time, Lisa. Who?
Lisa.Nesta on Instagram. It's there right on the screen. Thanks for all the support.
Tell them your name when there's a problem in the house, because you're not Lisa Nesta, are you?
That's always my name. What are you trying to say, Eddie? Oh, the boss lady.
Boss lady.
The boss lady.
Big shout out to Lydia. Did you hear Lydia Benjamin got involved today? Big shout out to Lydia Benjamin.
She said quite a few comments. I think I put a few up. Shout out to the
Yeah.
Hey.
Shame she won't come on the show.
She will. You have to just be nice, Eddie.
I'm sure if you ask her nicely.
Yeah, but
ask her nicely.
Right. You lot are painting a picture of me as not a nice person, and I don't like it. Bye-bye, boss lady. Merry Christmas.
Have a lovely weekend, everybody. Stay blessed. Bye-bye. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
She's even got an outro now.
Yeah,
Stay safe.
look.
She won't leave until she says it.
Welcome to the boss ladies. You created a
monster. You created a monster. I see her sitting in on the chat now, Eddie. You know she used to disappear and come back. Now she's just sitting there. That what? Yeah.
Why are you still in the chat?
She ain't going. So what? That's nice. You go, boss lady.
Oh, here we go.
Leave me alone. Bye-bye.
Bye, boss lady.
Bye-bye. Lovely to have you. Be on your show.
I've got a feeling we're being listened to, Eddie. Be careful.
Yeah, we need to be careful what we say. Tough one, Kurt. Well done, mate. Thank you.
No, it's great show. Great show. Really informative, Eddie. Because sometimes I sit here and I'm learning so much. And what I love about this show, you're not afraid of powerful women. And that is one thing. We've never been afraid of them. Because there's some wonderfully powerful women and you're finding them and having them on your show. And that's
well, actually, if I'm honest with you, it's more challenging to find powerful, articulate men than it is women. There are many of them. Many. I can't how many people you want me to upset one time. Listen, Curtis, it surprises me not that you sit there every week and learn something. I mean, we start from a really low base with you, don't we?
Yeah. But unlike you, I don't pretend I know more than I know and try and interrupt the experts. That's where you're amazing. You're amazing at that. You've got an expert on and you start telling them how their life goes. Really?
You ain't got nothing else to do.
I'm listening. That's how you learn, Eddie.
And it's an hour and 40 minutes.
And listen.
Yeah.
You know that 40 minutes is you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, my brother. Bye, boss lady. Stay safe. Oh, sorry, hang on. Let me do an outro. Stay safe. Look after each other now.
Next time you shave, I hope you cut off parts of your face. Sorry, that wasn't meant to come out like that. Listen, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your support. Again, just to remind you, you can support us by going to the GoFundMe page, by donating something. They're buying a t-shirt, a hat, a mask, whatever. We'd like to stay. We haven't put an end date on it because there doesn't appear to be an end date on when this lockdown will be in place for. There's songs pertaining to the New Crossfire. Actually, I know Johnny Osborne and Linton Crazy Johnson have done songs. We'll revisit this show on my other job for BBC Radio London tomorrow between 5 and 8 o'clock. Hopefully you can join us. There was a service at New Cross, or there will be at 3 o'clock today, commemorating the event, and the young people have just been looking at it yesterday. Thank you very, very much for sending that to us via Facebook, Hotmail. Well, wow. Thank you to Paula. Thank you to Diane. Thank you very much to Vadney. Thank you to Boss Lady, and thank you to Curtis. But big thank you to you. Thank you for joining us. We're here midday each and every Sunday with hashtag No Joke. Bye-bye.